The galactic survey ship Eternal Seeker drifted silently above the unremarkable yellow star, its crystalline sensors probing the third planet with methodical precision. Chief Xenobiologist Zixna watched the readings with growing disbelief, her translucent tentacles shifting from their usual calm blue to an agitated purple. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice resonating through the ship's observation chamber. "Run the atmospheric analysis again." Her assistant, a towering arthropoid named Kirtek, clicked his mandibles nervously as he initiated another scan. "Chief, this is the fourth time. The readings are consistent. The planet's atmosphere contains significant levels of oxygen." "Free oxygen shouldn't exist in these concentrations," Zixna responded, her tentacles now rippling with theories and calculations. "It's far too reactive. Unless—" She paused, her three primary eyes widening. "Unless something is constantly producing it." The implication sent shivers through her fluid-filled body. Free oxygen meant life, but not just any life. It meant organisms capable of photosynthesis on a planetary scale. As she studied the other readings, her amazement only grew. The planet was a swirling mass of contradictions, vast oceans of liquid water existing alongside active volcanoes, ice caps at the poles while tropical forests thrived at the equator, and most incredibly, signs of artificial structures visible from orbit. "Kirtek, are you detecting any energy shields? Atmospheric processors? Environmental stabilizers?" "Negative, Chief. Whatever lives down there is surviving these conditions naturally." Zixna's curiosity overcame her initial caution. "Prepare a detailed surface scan. Focus on those artificial structures. Let's see what kind of species could evolve in such an extreme environment." The scan revealed cities, sprawling metropolises of metal and stone, connected by networks of transportation systems. But what caught Zixna's attention were the readings from the inhabitants themselves. The sensors showed bipedal organisms moving about their daily lives, completely exposed to the harsh environment. "Their bodies are maintaining internal temperatures well above ambient," Kirtek reported, his professional demeanor cracking slightly. "And look at this. They're carrying significant quantities of water inside their bodies. In open circulatory systems, in an oxygen atmosphere." Zixna's color shifted to stark white, the equivalent of a gasp among her species. The metabolic demands alone should. She was interrupted by a new alert from the ship's sensors. One of the planet's primitive spacecraft had detected their presence and was altering course to investigate. Unlike the elegant crystalline architecture of the Eternal Seeker, this vessel was a brutal combination of metal and ceramic, powered by crude chemical rockets. "Should we cloak?" Kirtek asked, his claws hovering over the ship's defensive controls. Zixna considered for a moment. First contact protocols were clear, but something about this species fascinated her. Perhaps it was their apparent mastery of contradictions, building sophisticated cities while using primitive spaceflight, surviving in conditions that should be lethal while showing signs of advanced technology. "No," she decided. "Open a channel. Let's meet these creatures who've made their home in such an impossible place." The response came quickly, too quickly for automated systems. These beings were constantly monitoring their surroundings, another trait that piqued Zixna's scientific curiosity. The communication was a simple mathematical sequence, universal enough to demonstrate intelligence while basic enough to cross species barriers. As they established basic communication protocols, Zixna studied the biological data more closely. What she found challenged everything she thought she knew about evolution. These humans, as they called themselves, weren't just surviving in their harsh environment. They were thriving because of it. Their bodies were marvels of biological engineering. They maintained homeostasis across temperature ranges that would kill most species. They used the very oxygen that should have destroyed their cellular structure as a crucial part of their metabolism. Most incredibly, they had redundant organs, healing capabilities that bordered on regeneration, and a nervous system that could adapt to almost any situation. "Chief," Kurtek's voice had taken on an odd tone. "I've been analyzing their historical data broadcasts. These humans, they modified their planet's atmosphere themselves. Not with technology, but through agriculture. They've been terraforming their world since before they discovered metal." Zixna's tentacles writhed with excitement. Accidental ecological engineering on a planetary scale, without understanding the process. Fascinating. What else have you found? "They sleep," Kurtek continued, sounding disturbed. "Regularly. They voluntarily enter a state of unconsciousness for hours at a time. And yet, they've never been successfully invaded by another species. Their predatory instincts remain active even while unconscious." The implications were staggering. A species that could alter its planet's atmosphere through farming, survive in conditions that should be lethal, and maintain constant vigilance even while sleeping. The Galactic Council would need to know about this immediately. As the first direct communications were established, Zixna watched the humans with a mixture of scientific fascination and instinctive caution. They were sending up another ship to dock with the Eternal Seeker, a process that should have taken weeks of careful calculation. Instead, these humans were doing it with seemingly casual confidence, making complex orbital adjustments with intuitive ease. They're natural spacefarers, she realized aloud. Their harsh environment taught them everything they needed to know about surviving in space before they ever left their planet. The temperature extremes, the radiation, the need to carry their atmosphere with them. They've been preparing for space travel since they first evolved. The human ship docked with a precision that belied its crude appearance. As the airlock cycles began, Zixna prepared herself for humanity's first steps into the broader galaxy. She had discovered many species in her career, but something told her that these humans would change everything. Little did she know just how right she was, or how the galaxy would be forever transformed by the species that had evolved on a world that should have killed them countless times over. The age of humanity was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same. 5 years after first contact, the Galactic Council's Grand Chamber was in an uproar. Ambassador Trell, a crystalline being from the Rigel system, stood before the assembled representatives, his faceted surface flickering with patterns of distress. "They're colonizing where?" demanded High Counselor Vex, their feathered crest rising in agitation. "The methane storms of Titan Beta," Trell repeated, his crystalline form vibrating with each word. "Without protective domes, without atmospheric processors, they're living in pressurized habitats directly exposed to the surface conditions." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Titan Beta was considered uninhabitable by every spacefaring race in the Alliance. Its surface was scored by constant methane storms that could strip the hull from a standard spacecraft. The temperature fluctuations alone should have made permanent settlement impossible. Dr. Zixna, now serving as the chief xenobiologist for the Council, moved her hover platform forward. In the years since her first encounter with humans, her research had focused exclusively on understanding their capabilities. Perhaps we should let Ambassador Chen explain the human perspective. The human ambassador rose from her seat, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the agitated aliens around her. "Members of the Council, my people have a saying. Necessity is the mother of invention. We needed resources that Titan Beta could provide, so we found a way to live there. But the storms," began one counselor, "reminded us of the hurricanes on Earth." Chen interrupted smoothly. "We adapted our ocean platform technology, originally designed for Category 5 hurricanes, to handle Titan Beta's conditions. The methane storms actually provide us with fuel." Zixna's tentacles rippled with appreciation. This was what fascinated her most about humans, their ability to turn hostile conditions into advantages. Where other species saw obstacles, humans saw opportunities. "That's not all," Trell continued, his crystal surface now pulsing with urgent patterns. "They've begun mining operations in the magma flows of Vesuvius Prime." This announcement caused even more consternation. Vesuvius Prime was a volcanic world that had destroyed every automated mining operation ever attempted there. The surface temperature regularly exceeded 900 degrees Celsius. Really, it's not so different from deep-sea mining operations back home, Chen explained, as if discussing a routine matter. We've modified our underwater pressure suits to handle the heat instead of the cold. The principles are quite similar. The council members exchanged worried glances. In just 5 years, humans had expanded into environments that the Alliance had written off as impossible to colonize. They weren't using superior technology. Their solutions were surprisingly straightforward, often utilizing principles and technologies they'd developed before achieving spaceflight. There's more, announced Kirtek, who now served as the Council's chief of security. We've detected human exploration vessels in the void regions. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. The void regions were vast areas of space where conventional FTL travel was impossible due to gravitational distortions. Ships that entered the void regions were never seen again. Ambassador Chen looked slightly embarrassed. Ah, yes. We were going to mention that in next month's report. We've established several research outposts in the void regions. The gravitational conditions are fascinating. They remind us of the deep ocean trenches on Earth. We've adapted our submarine technology. You keep doing this, interrupted Counselor Vex. Taking deadly environments and treating them like they're merely inconvenient. It's not natural. With respect, Counselor, Chen replied. From our perspective, space itself is a deadly environment. Vacuum, radiation, extreme temperatures, these are all conditions we learn to deal with on Earth. Every human habitat, from the deepest ocean floor to the highest mountain peak, prepared us for space exploration. We didn't need to develop new solutions, we just needed to adapt existing ones. Zixna moved her platform closer to the center of the chamber. Honored Council, I believe we're witnessing something unprecedented. Humans didn't evolve despite their hostile environment. They evolved because of it. Every challenge they faced on their homeworld taught them lessons that they're now applying to space exploration. But what does this mean for the Alliance? Asked Trell, his crystalline surface showing patterns of concern. It means, Chen said quietly, that humanity is ready to help the Alliance explore and colonize regions that were previously considered impossible to reach. We're not here to compete. We're here to collaborate. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans weren't just surviving in impossible conditions. They were thriving, expanding, and offering to share their capabilities. Their solutions weren't based on advanced technology that could be copied or stolen. They were based on fundamental adaptations and approaches that were uniquely human. As the session concluded, Zixna found herself reviewing her original first contact notes. She had recognized then that humans were remarkable, but she hadn't grasped the full implications. Humans didn't just adapt to survive. They adapted to excel. They didn't just overcome obstacles. They turned those very obstacles into advantages. The question now wasn't whether humans could be stopped. It was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity would become. As she watched Ambassador Chen calmly discussing mining operations in conditions that would instantly kill most species, Zixna realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their physical capabilities. It was their perspective. Where others saw impossible challenges, humans saw solvable problems. Where others saw deadly environments, humans saw opportunities. And perhaps most importantly, where others saw limits, humans saw only temporary obstacles to be overcome. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was just getting started. The emergency alert echoed through the Galactic Council's chambers at the worst possible moment, just as the Council was debating whether to restrict human expansion into hazardous territories. The holographic display at the chamber center flickered to life, showing a scene that made even the most composed council members recoil. The Nexus Gate, the Alliance's primary faster-than-light travel hub, was failing. The quantum stabilizers that maintained its structure were deteriorating at an impossible rate, creating cascading ruptures in space-time. If the gate collapsed, it would take half the Alliance's major trade routes with it. All emergency response teams are reporting failure, announced Kirtek, his mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. "The radiation levels are beyond our shielding capabilities. We can't get close enough to attempt repairs." High Counselor Vex turned to Ambassador Chen, who was already speaking into her comm device. "Ambassador, your people have experience with radiation, but this is beyond anything." "Chernobyl," Chen interrupted, her eyes focused on incoming data. "The radiation levels are comparable to the Chernobyl disaster on Earth. We've dealt with this before." She looked up at the council. "We have teams trained for exactly these conditions. They can be here in 20 standard hours." 20 hours. Trell's crystalline surface flickered with doubt. "The gate will collapse in 30. Even if your teams arrive in time, how can they work in those conditions?" "The same way our ancestors did, with proper shielding, limited exposure times, and rotating teams." Chen's voice was calm, but her expression was grim. "We'll need full authority to handle this our way. No interference, no matter how unorthodox our methods might seem." The council didn't hesitate. They had learned that when humans described something as unorthodox, it usually meant they were about to do something simultaneously brilliant and terrifying. 19 hours later, the human response team arrived. Their ship was ugly by Alliance standards, a mass of thick armor and practical engineering that looked more like an orbital mining vessel than a rescue craft. Dr. Zixna, monitoring from a safe distance, watched in fascination as they began their work. The humans had brought what they called analog equipment, mechanical systems that couldn't be affected by the quantum distortions, while every other species had tried to solve the problem with advanced technology. Humans were using physical tools and manual labor, protected by suits that looked impossibly bulky and primitive. "They're going to die," whispered one of the council observers as the first team approached the gate's core. The radiation levels were now high enough to kill most species instantly. But the humans didn't die. They worked in short shifts, each team spending no more than 15 minutes in the highest radiation zones before being replaced. Their movements were quick and practiced, following procedures developed over centuries of dealing with radiation hazards on Earth. "Look at their efficiency," Zixna noted, her tentacles rippling with excitement. "They're not trying to avoid the radiation. They're managing their exposure to it. They've accepted that they'll be irradiated and planned accordingly." The council watched in amazement as the humans deployed what they called containment protocols, techniques developed for handling nuclear reactor meltdowns. They weren't trying to fix the gate immediately. Instead, they were stabilizing it section by section, using methods that seemed crude but were proving remarkably effective. "Ambassador," Counselor Vex asked, "your people will suffer cellular damage from this exposure, even with protection." "Yes," Chen replied simply. "They know. But human cells can repair radiation damage to some extent. Those who are exposed will be monitored and treated. This is why we have rotating teams. No one will be exposed beyond our calculated safety limits." 28 hours after the crisis began, the gate stabilized. The human teams had not only prevented its collapse, but had implemented new safety protocols based on their experience with nuclear containment. As the last team returned to their ship, the Council's medical experts rushed to examine them. What they found astonished them. The humans had indeed suffered radiation damage, but their bodies were already beginning to repair it. More importantly, they were already analyzing the data they'd gathered, discussing improvements to their procedures, and preparing reports on how to prevent similar incidents in the future. "I don't understand," Trell admitted during the emergency session that followed. "You knew this would harm you. Your team suffered damage at the cellular level. By any rational standard, this was a suicide mission." "No," Chen corrected. "This was a calculated risk. Humans have been taking calculated risks since we first discovered fire. It's how we progress. We assess the danger, develop safety protocols, and then we do what needs to be done." Zixna moved her platform forward. "Honored Council, I believe we're missing the point. The humans didn't just save the gate. They fundamentally changed how we approach hazardous situations. They've shown us that impossibly dangerous environments can be managed with proper procedures and acceptable risk levels. The council chamber erupted in discussion. The humans had proven themselves invaluable in a crisis, but their methods challenged everything the Alliance believed about safety and acceptable risk. They didn't seek to eliminate danger. They managed it. They didn't wait for perfect solutions. They found ways to work within the constraints they faced. As the debate continued, Chen received another message on her comm device. She smiled slightly as she read it. More human ships were already on their way, bringing equipment and personnel to help upgrade the gate's safety systems. They hadn't waited for permission or debate. They had seen a problem that needed solving and had acted. The galaxy was learning that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to survive impossible conditions. It was their ability to analyze those conditions, develop practical solutions, and act decisively, even when those actions came with personal cost. The crisis was over, but its implications were just beginning to unfold. The swarm arrived without warning. They emerged from the depths of uncharted space, a vast armada of biomechanical ships that consumed everything in their path. Their technology was unlike anything the Alliance had ever encountered. Organic ships that adapted to attacks and repaired themselves using the very resources they devoured. In the first month, they destroyed 3 major Alliance outposts. Conventional weapons proved useless against their rapidly evolving defenses. The Council's most advanced battle fleets were reduced to scattered remnants, their weapons rendered ineffective by the swarm's adaptive capabilities. They're learning from every engagement, reported Admiral Voss, his holographic image flickering before the emergency council session. Our energy weapons are becoming less effective with each encounter. They're consuming our defeated ships and incorporating our own technology into their biology. The council chamber, once a place of ordered debate, had become a crisis center. Representatives from across the galaxy watched in horror as tactical displays showed the swarm's relentless advance. Then Ambassador Chen spoke up. "You're all approaching this wrong," she said, her voice cutting through the panic. "You're trying to outmatch their technology. But that's not how humanity deals with overwhelming threats." Dr. Zixna, who had been analyzing the swarm's patterns, turned her attention to Chen. "What do you suggest?" "We go primitive," Chen replied, a glint in her eye. "The swarm adapts to advanced technology." "Fine. Let's show them something they've never seen before, something so basic they won't know how to counter it." Within days, human ships began arriving from across Alliance space, but they weren't the advanced warships everyone expected. These were crude vessels by Alliance standards, retrofitted mining ships and cargo haulers armed with what the humans called kinetic weapons, masses of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. "Railguns," Chen explained to the bewildered council. "No energy signatures to adapt to. No complex technology to counter. Just simple physics. Mass times acceleration equals force." The first engagement between human ships and the swarm revealed the brilliance of this approach. The swarm's adaptive defenses, designed to counter energy weapons and sophisticated attack patterns, had no answer for solid slugs of tungsten moving at relativistic speeds. Their biomechanical hulls, for all their advanced healing capabilities, couldn't cope with simple kinetic impacts. But humanity's real innovation came in their tactics. Instead of facing the swarm in traditional space battles, they fought like guerrillas. Mining ships used their excavation equipment to create debris fields, turning asteroid belts into weapon systems. Cargo haulers converted their loading mechanisms into mass drivers, launching physical projectiles that the swarm couldn't predict or adapt to. "They're fighting a modern war with ancient weapons," Kurtek observed, watching as human ships used gravitational slingshots to launch barrages of meteors at swarm formations. "Their primitive technology is actually an advantage." The swarm tried to adapt, developing stronger armor and point defense systems. But the humans simply changed tactics again, using the very void of space as a weapon. They detonated nuclear devices to create electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the swarm's biomechanical systems. They deployed clouds of metallic dust that clogged the organic intake vents the swarm used to consume resources. This is how humanity survived on Earth, Zixna explained to the Council as they watched the battles unfold. When faced with superior predators, they didn't try to match their natural weapons. They used tools, terrain, and tactics. They're treating the swarm like their ancestors treated dangerous megafauna, not as an invincible enemy, but as a problem to be solved. The turning point came at the Battle of Proxima Delta. The swarm had cornered a major Alliance refugee fleet, but instead of finding easy prey, they encountered a trap 3 weeks in the making. Human ships had seeded the entire system with simple mechanical mines, devices so basic they were practically invisible to the swarm's sophisticated sensors. As the swarm pursued the refugee ships, they triggered chain reactions in the minefield. Clouds of superheated plasma, created by nothing more complex than carefully arranged conventional explosives, engulfed entire sections of their fleet. The few swarm ships that survived found themselves caught in crossfires of accelerated mass weapons, fired from ships hidden in the system's dense asteroid fields. "Do you understand now?" Chen asked the Council as they watched the swarm retreat for the first time since their arrival. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our experience with being the underdog. We spent most of our history fighting things bigger and stronger than ourselves. We never forgot those lessons. The Council was beginning to understand. Humans weren't just adaptable. They were innovative in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. They could think both forward and backward, using ancient techniques alongside modern technology. They didn't try to match their enemy's strengths. They exploited their enemy's assumptions. As news of the victory spread, more Alliance species began adopting human tactics. Ships were retrofitted with kinetic weapons. Military doctrine was rewritten to incorporate Earth's ancient principles of asymmetric warfare. The Alliance was learning that sometimes the most effective solution wasn't the most advanced one. The swarm's advance had been halted, but the war was far from over. Yet for the first time since the invasion began, the Alliance had hope. They had discovered that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't their ability to survive in hostile environments. It was their ability to teach others how to do the same. 1 year after the Battle of Proxima Delta, the Galactic Council gathered for what would become a historic session. The chamber looked different now. Battle damage from swarm attacks had been left unrepaired, a reminder of how close they had come to extinction. But among the scars, new elements stood out. Simple mechanical gauges alongside quantum sensors, analog backup systems next to AI interfaces, human innovations that had become standard across the galaxy. The swarm had been driven back to the edges of known space, not destroyed. They were too numerous and adaptable for that, but contained, forced into a stalemate by tactics they couldn't overcome. More importantly, the galaxy itself had changed. Dr. Zixna, her tentacles now bearing the distinctive metallic sheen of radiation exposure from her work with human scientists, addressed the Council. "We thought we understood humanity when we first encountered them," she began. "We saw them as sophisticated barbarians, creatures who had somehow survived against impossible odds. We were wrong. They weren't survivors. They were teachers." The holographic displays showed images from across Alliance space, alien crews training in human-designed environmental suits, working in conditions they once considered impossible. Mining operations in stellar coronas, using modified versions of human deep-sea drilling techniques. Defense fleets practicing ancient Earth military tactics, learning to use simplicity as a weapon against superior technology. The humans didn't just show us how to survive. Kurtek added, his battle-scarred exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights. They showed us how to think differently, how to see challenges instead of impossibilities. Ambassador Chen sat quietly as the Council members shared their experiences. On her desk lay a piece of technology that symbolized humanity's impact, a mechanical watch. In an age of quantum chronometers, this simple device had become surprisingly popular among Alliance species. Not because it was better, but because it worked even when advanced systems failed. High Counselor Vex, who had once argued for restricting human expansion, stood to speak. We feared humanity would be a destabilizing force in the galaxy. We were right, but not in the way we expected. They didn't destabilize our societies. They destabilized our limitations. The evidence was everywhere. Alliance ships now carried physical books alongside their data cores. Redundancy, the humans called it. Space stations maintained hydroponic gardens based on Earth designs, providing food security and atmospheric regeneration. Construction projects used both advanced force fields and simple mechanical counterweights, combining the best of both approaches. But perhaps most importantly, Zixna continued, they taught us about calculated risk, about the difference between reckless action and necessary courage, about facing the impossible not because we can, but because we must. The council chamber's main screen displayed a new image, a human science team working alongside alien researchers on a project to stabilize a dying star. They were using a combination of advanced Alliance technology and surprisingly simple human engineering principles. It was a perfect symbol of how the galaxy had changed. We propose, announced Counselor Vex, the establishment of a new division within the Alliance, the Institute of Human Methodologies, not to study humans, but to learn from them, to understand not just what they do, but how they think. Ambassador Chen finally spoke up. With respect, Counselor, you still don't quite understand. We don't have special methodologies. We simply never accepted that something was impossible just because it hadn't been done before. That's not a human trait. It's a trait we learned from facing challenges. Any species can learn it. Many of you already have. She gestured to the chamber around them. Look at this room. A year ago, these backup systems would have seemed primitive to you. Now they represent wisdom. That's not because humans are special. It's because crisis taught you what crisis taught us, that survival doesn't care about elegance. It cares about what works. The council members murmured in agreement. The galaxy was entering a new age, not one dominated by humans, but one transformed by their influence. The swarm remained a threat, but no longer an insurmountable one. Other challenges would come, but the Alliance would face them with new perspectives and new tools. As the session concluded, Dr. Zixna found Chen staring out at the stars. Your people have changed us, she said. No, Chen replied, smiling slightly. We just reminded you of something every species learns when they first evolve, that the universe doesn't care about our preferences. It cares about our determination to survive, to solve problems, to overcome. Humans aren't special because we learned these lessons. We're special because we never forgot them. Outside the council chamber, life in the galaxy continued. Ships launched into the void, carrying crews better prepared for its challenges. Research teams explored phenomena they once thought impossible to study. Defense fleets patrolled the borders, ready to face threats with both advanced technology and simple ingenuity. The age of human influence had begun. But it wasn't an age of human dominance. It was an age of rediscovery, of remembering that the path to the stars began with simple tools and determination. The galaxy had learned that the future belonged not to the most advanced civilization, but to those willing to use every tool at their disposal, whether ancient or modern, simple or sophisticated. In the end, humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their survival skills. It was the reminder that the universe's greatest challenges could be overcome not by waiting for perfect solutions, but by facing them with every resource at hand, and never accepting that anything was truly impossible.